I see someone is talking there with a hand, and I guess I'm waiting for the... Okay, good.
Um, so Alexandra is saying that, first of all, she's really happy. She's calling us from Thessaloniki. She's participating from Thessaloniki, which is up in Greece, and she's really happy to be with you here. And one of the things you would like to mention has to do with job, with work. You mentioned before that one of the focuses is to do well at work. Now I'm going to go back to, because I could not remember everything, I just asked her to stop, so give me a minute to continue what you would like to tell us. So the question is, do we need to work subconsciously, or can we consciously work in order to do our best and to achieve happiness and to have a better life? So the question has to do with whether we can do that consciously or subconsciously things work, and that's why we cannot make big changes.
Well, the term subconscious is an interesting one to try to define, but I'll stray away from that for my answer tonight. The way that it, see, the feelings that we have or the experiences that we have are a kind of repetition defense. So we develop ways in which we make ourselves, the ways in which we see the world, and we try to orient ourselves and experience ourselves and feel good and, you know, all these things. However, what happens is they're largely, they become autonomous, they become a repetition. So we behave in the same ways, we hear the same things, we say the same things, we get in the same arguments, we repeat the same things in the arguments. You see, there's a repetition going on, and that repetition is held in place by unpleasant feelings that I don't want to have. So when I'm in the workplace and I start to experience things that I don't like, I tell myself certain things. I might tell myself, don't feel that way. Or I might tell myself, oh, that's not what they mean. Or I might tell myself, I need to work harder. All these kinds of adaptations to compensate for those feelings that I don't want to have and to move into a direction that I think I want to go, if that makes sense. So here's the key. The key is you want to be able to first recognize what it is that you're avoiding, because what it is that you're avoiding is holding in place the things you tell yourself and limiting your ability to move forward in the workplace. It's limiting your performance because you're repetitively working around that which is unpleasant or unacceptable for you, if that makes sense. So what I would advise you there is to look for, what don't I want to feel here, and how am I behaving in a way to avoid these feelings that I don't want to have? And if you want to call that subconscious, you could. I mean, some people in psychology would say, I have these unconscious feelings and I'm avoiding them. And so you could use that language if you want. But what I prefer, I'd rather take the subconscious part out and just say, what is it that you, maybe I should look here actually, what is it that you're avoiding? What are the feelings that you don't want to have? Does that make any sense for you? Does that mean anything?
So the question, she's trying to really get what you're saying, and she has a very simple question. So she says, consciously, I want to be successful and I want to make money, and the money that I deserve to have. Can I do it?
I love that. I love it. You want to be successful, you want to make money, and you want to get what you deserve. And don't we all, I mean, that seems like such a human feeling to have. I love it. And what I want you to notice about that is that what is it that's fueling, first of all, there's a part of you that is telling yourself that and making that up for yourself, that story that you want to do these things and that you want to be successful and you want to get what you deserve. So first of all, I want to say, notice that that's a story, that's a narrative that you're making up, and that we're all been programmed in the Western world to make up for ourselves. You're not the only one. We're all programmed that way. And then to notice what is it that's underneath that narrative, the feelings of not being enough, if you're not getting what you deserve. What is the loss architecture underneath that? It's basically a you're not good enough. You don't have enough money, or you don't have enough recognition in your job. You're not getting what you deserve. So this is what I talked about. The loss narrative, the loss architecture, is turned into a loss narrative. And if you sit with those feelings, and you can do it right now, I'm glad to do it with you to show you how this works. But if you sit with those feelings of essentially of inadequacy, what do you notice? What do you notice when you imagine that you're not making enough money, you're not getting what you deserve, you may not ever, perhaps, I don't know what your fears are about that, or what is that like? What's the experience like right now? If you do that right now, I'm very interested. What's your experience?
Failure, and that she has failed in some way, and a bad feeling.
Failure. I mean, this is the number one feeling that all of us need to embrace. The feeling of failure is the bottom layer that now is running all kinds of neurotic and fragmented behaviors on top of that feeling of failure. So if you allow yourself to be a failure, because let me tell you something, we're all failures. We are all failures. You are a failure. I am a failure. The world is failing. We are failing. And we don't have to look too far to see that. I mean, the world is really a mess. In many ways, it's also a paradise in many ways. But the first thing I want you to do is just come to terms with, and this is part of the sit meditation, what I teach people is how to sit with that polarity that you're avoiding. You see, if you can come to terms with your being a failure, that's what's locking you into conflict and actually holding you back. But if you come to terms that you are a failure, that you don't have to resist that, take a moment and just notice what it would be like if you just accepted that you were a failure, that's okay.
She would feel much better, because if she feels that her and everybody around her is at the same place, and if whenever she accepts something, she feels better.
It is true. Acceptance is powerful, transformative medicine. The more that you and I can accept our failures, our personal failures and our failures together, and the more we can accept the failures of the society and government and the world and family and people that we love around us, the more that acceptance occurs, the less polarization there is, and the more clarity happens. Now, let me even expand that clarity, because what I want you to notice is the part of you that, on one hand, imagines you're a failure, and the other hand goes, oh, maybe everybody's a failure. This is also a story. Maybe everybody's a failure, and it's okay because we're all failures. And both of those things are occurring in a larger frame of reference that is this frame of consciousness I'm talking about. Psychology stops with this, let me feel okay about myself, right? This is a psychological answer. Now we're all failures, okay? But what I want you to get that's more important, that's more expansive, is that the part of you that's doing that the part of you that's saying failure on one side or everybody's a failure or whatever the story is, that part isn't affected by the story. That's where the real gold is. Because the psychological framework, it's valuable to go from a story that you feel bad to a story that you feel better. That's what most of what psychology is trying to accomplish. But what I want to say to you is this game of feeling good and feeling better and making up stories about it, you can set that aside if you realize that your essential nature is unaffected by whether you're a failure or not. All these things become greatly diminished when you realize that your essential nature is not affected by failure or not failure or loved or unloved or how much you own or don't own or what your position is in society. These things are irrelevant to that which you already are.